the franchise we're going to talk about is my man here, Habib. We was talking off mic last episode, and we was talking about Fate, the franchise, and when he started talking, that's when I knew that Sensei, this guy is my sensei now. Yeah, I must let him. I must let him expand his knowledge to the masses so we can talk about it, because Fate, the whole thing with Fate is interesting, Habib. This just jumps straight into it now. I feel like Fate is a franchise that was just another mediocre series that has now turned into greatness.
Yeah, I mean, when Fate Stay Night first came out, when did it come out? I think it was like 2007, maybe 2008. When it came out, it was one of those series that if you caught it, you saw a really good series. But if you didn't know the back history behind it, you were kind of like, it's just a mediocre franchise involving magicians and whatever. And that's the thing, though. Is like when you do get to watch it, you're kind of taken back by it. Because a lot of people at first kind of like, I don't like where this is going. I'm not too big a fan of it. And then I know when it sort of when the series comes to a close, you kind of go, okay, that was interesting. I'd like to know more about it. And if you do your own violation and you decide to do a little bit of research onto the series, you then discover it's got much more of a history involved into it.
Yeah, and to start, I wish I could remember the exact time when I watched Fate. I just remember I was watching. There was a slew of shows that seems similar, and I know people might disagree. Like I remember, Bleach was running at the same time. Shana was running, Soul Eater, and they all were like pairs of people joining up together, fighting either souls or
some sort of mystical, supernatural, magical being of some kind, or a battle involving magic on one point or another. I mean, at the time, obviously, Bleach, when was that? 2007. Bleach was in its high point of its run, I think, and it was actually building a lot of steam in its popularity. And then Shakugan no Shana had just ended its second season, if I remember correctly. So, and that was done by the same people who made what was it called? Turao no Jitsu. What's it called? Certain magical index. Yeah, it's done by the same people. I forgot how you pronounce it in Japanese, but that series is actually quite good as well. It's done by the same company, and the storylines for those kind of technically run parallel with each other, but that's another anime franchise for another time. And Soul Eater was sort of like that. There was that bi-monthly manga that got made into an anime, and it had actually done really well for itself, because it was like, yeah, it dealt with death gods, but it was death gods in a different spot, so it wasn't following what Bleach did, but it did something else entirely and made it unique in its own way.
And look where Soul Eater's finally hit the big time now, hasn't it, people? Toonami, big, and I think it is a great franchise for US audiences to see.
Yeah, I mean, like, when was the last time an anime that hit the US was such a big thing? It was probably when Gundam Wing hit, and everybody was kind of like, oh, Soul Eater's this big thing that's just hit the Toonami, and you're like, Toonami's back? What the heck, The one thing that supported anime throughout the majority of the 2000s was Toonami, so to have Soul Eater on it, it's a good boost for it as well.
I really, really foresee Soul Eater having a Brotherhood-esque, reboot.
A reboot, maybe. I mean, the way they ended the anime, I don't remember how it properly ended, but I do know it went down an anime original ending. If the manga, because I know it's ending soon. If it ends and then they decide to greenlight for a second season, then it probably will go quite a decent way about it. So.
Yeah, Studio Bones are doing an animation as well, and they did Brotherhood, so it's the same studio company. And we spoke about this. Me and Nuance did the Soul Eater review on a previous episode, people. And I think one of the producers did say it is very possible. And I got a feeling if it has a really good American reception, I think that's going to give it a green light. But that's just a hypothesis. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if there's nothing wrong with hoping for it to get a sequel. I mean, once the manga ends, there's nothing to say it won't.
I'm going to read the manga anyway. But anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand. Yeah, Fate. It's Fate. So let's start. We're not going to do a traditional review, people. What I do want to kind of inform you listeners is that we're kind of going to go into spoiler territory on this episode. If you haven't seen Fate Stay Night or Fate Zero or Unlimited Blade Works,
skip ahead to next week's podcast.
Yeah, I mean, come back when you've seen it, because I need to vent my thoughts, and we're going to discuss the storyline, the characters and stuff like that, and that's the point. So, but we're going to start the way it was released. I think that's the best way to do it.
Probably just do the way the broadcast releases. So we'll start with Fate Stay Night and then work back to, and then go to Unlimited Blade Works and then go back to Fate Zero if you want to. But that was the broadcasting, so to speak, release dates.
So first of all, I'll start by saying so I don't want to confuse anyone, but I just have to jump around a little bit. After watching Fate Zero recently, I had to rewatch Fate Stay Night because I hadn't watched Fate Stay Night for about 4 or 5 years. I mean, there was such a long gap. I needed to get some answers that Fate Zero kind of left open-ended for me. So the good news is I've rewatched Fate Stay Night very recently. It's very fresh in my mind, so I think I can give it like a fair review or a fair look at it now, because from my memory, it was coming up as a really bad show. I really thought that show was rubbish, and when you find out that Saber is King Arthur, I thought, what? That's crazy.
I like that. That's the thing, though. When they showed that at the end, like towards the end of Fate Stay Night, like how like they were revealing like who was said heroes were, I was kind of like, I did not see that coming. And then there was a couple like when I first got into it, I didn't actually find it. It's my brother actually downloaded it for me and on my computer, and I thought, okay, fine, let me see what he's downloaded. Let me give this a watch. Sat down to watch, and I was like, oh, I'm intrigued by this, just because the people who made it, like the developers developers and the creators, it was a company called Type Moon and Nitro Plus. And if some of you've seen on Tyro, like I don't know, who was it? Was it Hybrid? Media Hybrid, who did the Phantom review. They're the same company who did the Phantom Requiem of the Inferno. Nitro Plus is the same company who made it, so they are sort of like the creators of the Fate series.
Really? I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah, there's like, after Fate Zero came out, there was a lot of artwork that did a crossovers of between like the Fate characters and the Phantom Inferno characters, and it was this sort of proper madness of meshing of battle and whatnot. And it was quite amusing to see the pictures, and I was like, I like the way this art works, and the companies have like kind of meshed it together. But back to Fate Stay, it's like when I initially got into Fate Stay, I was kind of like, let me give this a watch. This is kind of interesting. I mean, it's like with most anime series. If the first, say, 5 episodes of an anime can't hook you, most people don't tend to stay with it. I normally I'll give it the first 2 or 3, and then if it doesn't hook me after that, then I just don't watch it altogether. Unless I have a vested interest in it, then I give it I go with it longer than I should do. But my normal process when watching anime is if I don't like the first 3 episodes, I tend to stop after that.
I'm surprised because you seem to have more leeway than me.
No, don't get me, I do, but it's like I can tell within the first 3 episodes if the series is worth it.
I guess.
So me personally, I'll watch it, but I can kind of go, right, this might be worth my time. I don't mind spending 12 weeks watching this, or 24, whatever, how long it is. And then sometimes after that, if it suddenly decides to dip, then I'm like, all right, let me get through it to the end. At the end of the series, I'm not happy with it. I'm like, right, delete it. It's one of those I've watched and said that's done. But with Fate, I don't know what it was that made me stay onto it, but I think it was the initial concept that it was magic, and I kind of went, it's magic. This is awesome.
I'm not going to say, sorry to cut
That's
you, man. I'm not going to say at the time it was shown there was hype about it. I remember just coming across it as a normal show myself, and I didn't hate it. I just remember I just thought the whole show was kind of odd, and the thing that kind of put me off the show was the light-hearted injection at times just felt a bit silly, because at times it would be really, really dramatic. For the majority of the anime, even Fate Stay Night is dramatic, but sometimes, some lightheartedness would come out of nowhere. It just wouldn't fit, Yeah. But after watching it again recently, I will say it's not as bad as I remember. Again, I think my memory was being much harsher on it than it actually is, to be honest with you.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, it's your own opinion on this, though, isn't it? So, I mean, a lot of people also forget that, obviously, because Fate Stay Night, when it was the first one out of the series to be produced as a TV show, they were like, oh, okay, it's made for TV, it's an anime made for TV, so certain audiences can watch it. What most people don't know is that Fate Stay Night is a hentai game, initially released on the PC back in, I think it was 2006, I think it was, or probably just before that. So it was, obviously, there's a lot of stuff they can't show in an anime, but there's a lot of stuff that makes more sense when you play the game.
Have you played the game?
I haven't. It's the only reason is because I haven't found a US version to it yet, or a European equivalent to it. But I do know one exists. I mean, there are those who have actually managed to load the game up onto the internet, and you can download a patch that allows you to translate into English. But I was like, at the time, my PC just couldn't handle that much gaming on there, so I was like, I'll just leave my PC mainly for surfing the net and watching anime.
But it's an old game. It was made in 2000, 1999, wasn't it?
Probably around about then. Yeah, it was. I know it was a while ago. I know it was in the 2000s. It was technically made, so it was a while ago.
It's kind of confusing to me that since the franchise is so popular, they haven't redone the game. I know there's, ports of the game now that are on PlayStation 3 that are battle games, but they haven't actually rebooted the PC game, as far as I know.
They that's the thing. They don't technically need to, because the PC games, as far as I know, they've done. What was it? It was Fate. Staying Up was the PC one. Then it was Fate Hollow. Or Ataraxia, I can't remember. I can't pronounce that one properly. There was that one, which is another alternative reality. Then they did the Fate Zero one, which I think was a PC one. I think it might have been the last PC one they did. And then they did to the PC stuff, not PC stuff, the PlayStation PSP. The PSP and some must say they did. What was it? Unlimited Codeworks was a game they released for the PSP. Then after that, the last one they did was one called Fate. Was it Fate Extra? Yeah, Fate Extra was the last one they did, which was the latest one. And the Fate Extra ones had about 4 updates to it with new characters and new story added into it. So,
this really is a franchise that is it's like someone created a mold and they kept on chipping it off and perfecting it and tweaking it and going back and fixing it, and that's what fascinates me about this franchise. I haven't seen someone go back to a franchise and keep adding to it and going back and fixing it. And
it's more like they take sort of like the core of it, of what Fate's all about, and then they kind of just tweak it for little things here and there. It's like the Fate Extra game, if anyone's played it on the PSP, they'll know it's not actually set within the same universe as the other Fate series. It's sort of like an alternative universe that runs alongside it. You get some characters from the original series making an appearance in it, but then primarily you've got the fan favorites, and then they add in a few extra people in to make it just specifically unique for their own series. So with Fate Extra, the main character who gets a choice of 3 different servants to choose from. So you get a choice from a saber, archer, and a caster. Those are the 3 you can choose from, or she can choose from, depending which character you prefer to play as. And each of them have their own. Like the saber in the Fate Extra game series, it's not King Arthur. It's a completely different person, but it looks pretty much like Arthur, except for she's wearing red. And you're there going, it's Saber. Yeah, she's wearing red. Yes, it's not King Arthur though. So.
Do you know what's funny about Saber as well? Her unit, she looks like her suit looks like a combination of a maid's uniform combined with a suit of armor.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
So it's like what? Because what is? She looks like a maid, but then she's fighting. It's like, and this is King Arthur. This is it was crazy shit like that just made me think this anime is odd. But getting back to Fate Stay Night anyway.
Yeah, so probably obviously those who don't know the premise of Fate Stay Night, the Fate Stay storyline goes like this. It's like there's a Holy Grail War that takes place like once every 10 years. And in that 10 years, as soon as that 10th year hits and the year the wars kicked in, 7 magicians are chosen to partake in this war. And they, prior to the beginning of the Holy Grail War, have to summon 7 servants to fight for them. And each servant's categorized in a different class. So you've got an archer class, saber class, assassin, rider, caster. I'm forgetting berserker. Unless I said that one right. And there's another one which I forgot what it was. But there's 7 classes they technically have to choose from, and then each of that classes is assigned a hero from history. So as we've already said, Saber was King Arthur, and then you had Berserker who was in there as well for Fate Stay Night, and then you had Ryder who was. Oh well, since we're doing a spoiler, I might as well tell you that Berserker was Hercules in Fate Stay Night. Ryder was Medusa. Who was Assassin again? Assassin was a guy who was a fictional character from a book, and I think they gave his name, but I forgot what his name was. Caster was another. Who was she again? She was somebody from Greek history, and I forgot what her character was.
She was, yeah. I can't remember.
I think she was the woman in Greek history that said she wanted the beauty to be as more beautiful as Aphrodite, and I think Aphrodite cursed her back. I think that was her. That character. I forgot her name was.
I should know this from playing God of War.
You should know this then.
I can't remember, but go on, carry on.
That's her who plays Caster. Archer, I don't want to give away the spoiler for that just yet, because
thank you. I was hoping you wouldn't, because
we'll go into that character's background a little bit, but his history is actually quite interesting as well. And then there was obviously the main sort of baddie in it, who was the other Archer class character, Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
I swear I'm forgetting someone. I can't remember who I'm forgetting.
And you see, this is where my confusion. Just imagine you're confused and you know it in
Yeah.
depth. I didn't watch a series for like years, and when I watched Fate Zero, and then when I watched Fate Night again, it's like I'm getting so confused that for me, the main thing which is so silly and ridiculous I didn't understand was that their classes,
Yeah.
and that they're not the same. They don't have to be the same people. They don't have to be the same people from history. And when I understood that, I was like, you know what? I like that concept. Reviving anyone from past, whether it's mythological or whatever.
Well, it was supposed to be that when they summoned their hero in that class, it was supposed to be that character, or sorry, that figure was assigned to that class because it was supposed to be best suitable for them. But then for some reason, all series like this, like each class outdoes another in terms of strength or speed or whatever. But apparently, Fate Stay Night, not the archer class, the saber class was supposed to be the most powerful class in that war. So if somebody pulled the saber class hero as their servant, they were supposed to be guaranteed. They were the favorite to win the Holy War. Is pretty much what they were saying.
I know this is a bad analogy. It just reminds me of like when you're playing Street Fighter and then you've got the karate guys, the Ryu and Ken and the Akumas, and they're all at the same class. And then you've got the other kind of projectile people that aren't really martial artists.
You mean like the guys that like Ryu versus Guile? You've got the guys who can do the button mash, and then you've got the turtle characters where you have to crouch to do the move.
Exactly. And they're different flavors, but you feel like if you get the karate, you get the best. That's the best class. So yeah, I can see where you're coming with that comparison. But yeah, what I want to say, because you've basically laid out a story and we've spoke about some of the characters. Regarding Fate Stay Night, after rewatching it now, and I'm trying to kind of put my mind away from Zero, which is very hard, because Zero has really made this franchise a whole lot better.
Yeah.
But when I watched Fate Stay Night again, I said, you know what? It really wasn't that bad. It was okay. It was much better than I thought. I mean, I prefer it than Shana, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, Shana's one of those that it takes a while to get into. So, I mean, if you haven't read the manga for Shakugan no Shana, you'll be like, you jump into the anime, and I think the anime does kind of sever much of the back history. So you're watching it going and taking everything that you see with a pinch of salt and on face value. So you're kind of like, okay, I'm watching it. I'm kind of getting it, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure I'm missing something that's involved with it that explains this bit.
Well, the thing with Sean, and I know people were totally talking about something else now, is that the love element becomes very prominent, which becomes very problematic for me with Shana. It becomes like a love polygon at a certain point, which is just ridiculous. But anyway, Fate Stay Night, watching it again recently after Fate Zero, I have to say it was okay. If I had to give it a rating, because this isn't a traditional review, remember people, we're just talking about the franchise in its entirety, I would say Fate Stay Night is like a high watchable for me, even now, even after seeing it. My problem is with it, it's just the animation doesn't make sense, and this is especially after seeing Fate Zero. Some of the characters' ages and they all look the same body type, but they fixed that in Fate Zero again, and even in Unlimited Blade Works, the animation, they actually look more how they should look, or you know what, it's all my own opinion, but my main problem with Fate Stay Night is it just feels a little bit, to me, unbalanced. The seriousness and the lightheartedness, is like, please be consistent. But things I do like about it, since I've, barked on it a bit, the story is actually pretty good. The mythos, they took it seriously, is very good. The tension is very good. And the characters, which they build upon through prequels and side stories, are excellent. The characters are actually the best part. Even the funniest character, the main guy, the most, I don't even know, you know what, when you say a predictable, bland protagonist, that I want to save the world, I just want to be a hero. This guy goes over that. He is so, something can be so unfunny, it's funny again.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, so obviously we're talking about Kirigutsu Emiya, the main hero from Zero. Are we talking about his son Shiro? Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about Shiro. Basically, for me, he's the protagonist that wants to save everyone, that believes that everyone can be saved, that wants to be a hero, and
his ideology, and it was very quite simple. I want to be a champion of justice was pretty much what he wanted to be. Just because in Fate's Day, I mean, they didn't go too much into his father. All they showed him. I mean, if you wanted to give like his father screen time for Fate's Day night, he was about 5 minutes at most for the entire series.
Exactly.
And that 5 minutes was supposed to be, that showed you the reason why Shiro wanted to become who he wanted to become, this champion of justice. And the thing is that even though his father from Fate is not, his like Emiya Kirigusu, who's not his biological father, which made that clear. He's his adopted father. So like obviously he was like, I want to be a champion of justice, just because obviously how he's like, Emiya Kirigusu explained it to him, like, goes, I was wanted to be a champion of this.
But the funny thing is, without seeing Zero, you just, like you said, you get 5 minutes of him saying that to him, and to me, it didn't justify him wanting to be a hero so badly, because in Fate Stay Night, the guy doesn't seem like he even has common sense.
Yeah.
There's points where Saber's like, I'm the one with the powers, I'm the one that should be protecting you, not because just I'm a woman, because, that's my job.
Yeah.
And he's just so adamant about, no, he knows that he's weak. He knows his power is not, to say it's minimal is ridiculous. Well, what the revelations that come later is another thing. But to his own knowledge, he's just a normal guy with a wooden stick sometimes.
Well, no, he is a magician. Let's not just discredit the fact he is a mage itself. Hence, otherwise he wouldn't have been chosen to partake in the Holy War. It's just that his type of magic is restrictive. For magicians in that verse, his magic is considered basic magic.
But he didn't care about that at all.
No, he doesn't. I mean, all he knows is that I can do this thing called tracing magic, and it allows him to either like enforce things. That's pretty much what he could do basically with it, or he could.
Well, he doesn't care what kind of power he has. He doesn't care how strong he is. He's just so unreasonable in his logic. But there's a good reason for that, and this is built up through Zero for me more than. When you watch Fate saying that, he talks a lot. He just says, and it just doesn't. That why? Why do you have this desire? And the thing I like about Fate saying that is the characters that address him with this. What is wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly.
You're so. It doesn't even make sense. You've got a complex. You've got a hero complex, and he admits it, and they go into it, and that makes sense. And to be honest with you, that actually makes his character redeemable because he's so right wing. It's even unnatural. It's unnatural for a hero not even to be scared. For me, it was just like, this guy is so ridiculously stupid. What's that line he says that's been memed all over the place? People die when they are killed.
Something like that. Probably something. I was like, what is that line? I've just gone blank on it myself. But yeah, it's something along that lines. Yeah.
But anyway, we're gonna. I'm gonna just finish up what I have to say about Fate Stay Night. I think it's an okay show, and the whole reason we're doing this podcast, people, is basically because of how the company have taken this franchise, this Fate Stay Night, and they've built upon it, and they've made it into something that is actually worth talking about. And I want to get your final thoughts on Fate Stay Night, because after this we're going to move to Fate Zero.
I mean, like with Fate Stay Night, I mean, it was one of those. It was that series where obviously back then you were stuck with like the Naruto's, the Bleachers, the One Piece, and the copycat shows that came after it. So when sort of that Fate Stay came out, and because I like history, I'm a big fan of history myself. So when this show introduced magic and the thought of you being able to summon a hero from like the past to be your champion or your avatar, I was kind of like, well, that was interesting. And my brother and I like to have discussions on hypotheticals. Like, if you were thrown into that position, I mean, what would your avatar do you reckon you'd be? Who would you get? And we would you throw all the characters from history, and you're there like, oh, you'd get Achilles or someone else or whatever, and you're just like, there's untold possibilities of heroes they could have thrown into the Fate storyline, but they came up with the ones predominantly most people would technically know. And the series, as it went on, I got more and more excited by it, just because you got to see like Rin Toxica, she's like the lead, the joint lead female in this, and she's sort of like the girl who teaches Shiro how to fight this war, but at the same time she slowly is like in admiration. She shows admiration of who he's going to become. And I mean, that was a great thing. And afterwards you saw like how the Fate Stay Night series went down. Like, he ended up being like the main bad guy, and then like Saber went off to do her thing to beat her adversary, which she apparently never got to beat at the end of the last series, and it was good. So I mean, I personally liked Fate Stay Night. It was a good series, but like I said, it's one of those series that it takes a while for people to get into if it's your type of thing. But if it's not your type of thing, you'll be like, I don't know why I'm jumping into this.
And if you had to rate it, how would you rate it?
Oh, well, how would I rate it? I forgot what the ratings are for Tyro are. I'd probably say it's between first class and solid B.
Hmm.
But then again, that's me. Like, I'm edging towards more first class just because it's a type of show that would intrigue me more.
Yeah.
And considering I've actually, like, after watching the series, I felt compelled to go back to find out more about the series. I jumped across a whole, like, huge franchise, as we're going to, like, obviously talk about later on. But it opened up so much more for me. So I was like, yeah, I mean, if Fate Stay Night actually was done animated how the game was done, I would this would be a whole other thing. It'd have to be rated 18.
Hmm. And that's why I'm glad I got you on, because a lot of people have it, but even more negative about the franchise than me. They think this is an overhyped, overhyped series, over a whole overhyped franchise. And again, as you just clearly stated, if it's your thing, then you're going to be drawn to it. And for anyone that was drawn into the franchise of Fate Stay Night alone, I commend. But once you watch Fate Zero now,
it's all about Fate Zero review, isn't it?
Fate Zero just it made this franchise what it is. I'm sorry, if it wasn't for Fate Zero, we wouldn't be having this podcast, my friend.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's fair enough. I mean, don't get me wrong, Fate Zero is a great series. I mean, it does answer a lot about what Fate Stay Night showed, but it gave you hints at what to expect. You weren't sure what they were referring to, but they did, like, bring up certain topics, and you're like, I don't know what they're referring to. Like, there were certain parts like...
Can you give us the rundown from start to finish for Fate Zero then? I know it has the same story.
Fate Zero kind of has the same story, but it changes in places. Where Fate Stay Night was every 10 years a battle was supposed to take place for the Holy Grail, Fate Zero, if I remember correctly, wasn't that short a gap. I don't think it was even that much of that big a gap. Fate Stay Night was every 10 years Holy Grail battle starts, 7 magicians are chosen, and whoever wins that gets to choose the Holy Grail. Fate Zero is sort of similar in that aspect, but I think the war was over a longer gap. So
yeah, I think so too.
I don't think it might have been 50 years, maybe a bit longer.
That's what I thought. It was 100 years. I thought it was a century.
Yeah, it was like 100 years in that case then. So it was 100 years. Every 100 years, 7 magicians are chosen. But in Fate Zero, it's not 7 random magicians are chosen. In Fate Zero, it's 7 magicians from seven different houses are chosen. So there were these high-class magical families, those who are prominent in the magical world, who are pretty much, in a sense, number one contenders to take part in this war. So you've got Kirigutsu Emiya, who is the main protagonist for Fate Zero, and then you've got who was it again? The Tosaka family. Oh, what was that English guy's name? I forgot his surname was.
Sensei, you should know this, not me.
I'm trying to remember what it was. Archibald, that was it. I knew I was right. Kenneth Archibald. He was from the English side. He was supposed to be a progeny of his clan of magicians, so he was thrown into it. Then there was the Mato family, Japanese ones, magicians who were thrown into it, and the Iris Fields was who Emiya Kirigutsu was aligned with, as he married Iris Field. He married the Iris Fields. What was her name again? Yeah, that isn't it, Irisfield. She was a daughter for that family, and then he ended up becoming their champion for magician, as their magician for the war. And there was and then afterwards it was like a few others who were just joined in because they needed to fill in the gap for about 3 more magicians to enter. But no, it's like in a sense it was the same thing. So 7 magicians with their avatars joined into the war, and then prior to the war kicking off. I suppose I'd say there was a much scheming was done. Like there were those who would try to secure the Grail for their own with as many alliances as they could, and try to find ways to garner the best servants as they could. So when I think it was the first episode that kicked off. The first episode was like an hour plus long.
It was. So yeah, it was an hour.
So it shows you the introduction of the characters, and it then goes on to show how each of the said masters summoned their servants, and each of them were using items that belong to said hero that they somehow managed to obtain over the centuries. So who was it? Tosaka, he ended up summoning Gilgamesh as his avatar for the first war. So that was so in a sense that's Rin's father. He was the mage and he was head of the Tosaka family line, so he was the head, and he summoned Gilgamesh, and he was like, I've summoned the best warrior there is to serve me. And then Kirigitsu had Avalon as his avatar to summon his hero, or his mage. So he ended up using the scabbard of Excalibur as his prop to get a saber there, and he's like, and he was like, right, I've got a saber, and he's like, he knew who she was. So from the start, it was like, that's King Arthur, done. I forgot who got Berserker. Oh yeah, I remember Berserker now. That was it. There was the Mato family, which was the Japanese magicians who they were sort of like a disgraced family, so they were using the Holy Grail as a way to bring their family line back up, like the prominent family of magicians in the world. His first-born child, whose name I forgot, he just pretty much disavowed the family. He didn't want anything to do with it. But when he found out that his father had taken some really drastic methods to secure an heir.
The girl, right?
The girl Sakura, who is in the series, she is Rin's biological sister. So she ended up being like, they not sold off. They gave her, pretty much said, look, you need a magician. We'll give you so you can partake in this war. So they gave her to the family, and she was only about 7 or 8, and it was ridiculous. No, probably even younger than that. And so she was being used to be the new mage to fight in the war, and you're like, that's just ridiculous. She's only 7. There's no way she's going to win. And so the son volunteered, said, I'll do it, but you have to leave Sakura alone. And then the father was like, fine, you can do it, but you have to survive like the worms that we use as and no joke, these things are disgusting when you look to see what they did, and that's why the Fate series is like one of those things that are blatantly rated R or an 18 above, just because the stuff they pull off in it is actually quite disturbing.
Yeah, the tone for Fate Zero is so dark and
it is
serious, and there's just no levity in this show. It's just,
to be fair, they don't cater. They're not holding back. If you're going to watch it, you've got to be expecting there's going to be some brutal stuff thrown into it.
And you see, this is my fascination with the franchise. What was the decision that they, compared to Fate Stay Night, we're going to take out the levity that was there, intensify this, and take this seriously, really make a dark, gritty story. And just, and from the animation, the comparison I make is like if Fate Stay Night met Darker Than Black.
That's just two separate things entirely, man. I mean, Darker Than Black
is
based on
the tone of Darker Than Black was very, very dark and very.
First season or the second season of Darker Than Black?
The first season.
Okay, but the second season was not as dark as you made it out to be. The first season was dark-ish, yeah. But then when season 2 hit, you're kind of like, all right, then they've kind of lightened the mood, halved the series, and kind of gone this way of it. And you're like, all right, fair enough.
I disagree with that, to be honest with you. But, that's a different discussion. But that's my comparison, because I just felt like there was a lot of death, and I felt there was a very similar distinction between, is it Hei and Kikuritsu, if I'm saying that right? Hei from Darker Than Black.
Oh, okay. I was there like, which character was this in Fate Stay? I was like, oh, right, okay. But no, like, Hei in Darker Than Black was just because that was the background. Like, he chose to be that on purpose. Whereas Kirigitsu's upbringing, it was sort of like he had no choice in the matter. I mean, we all, like, in Fit Zero, we saw that his childhood from Fit, like, yes, he was at first the kid who was smart and whatnot, and then
I kind of disagree with that. I think he got a complex as well. I think he had a similar complex to what his adopted son ended up having, to be honest with you. His son had the hero complex, and he had
a hero complex as well, but he took a much, much, much darker route that most demon heroes would do. So,
yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of anime titles where they've been in that situation where his father did something really fucked up.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And his reaction to that, you can't say. A lot of people wouldn't. A lot of even anime characters wouldn't have that reaction that he had to that. So that's why I say that. I wouldn't say he's a product of his surroundings or his environment. I would say a switch went off in him, and he got a complex. And I don't really know where that came from. It came from a very bad situation, obviously. But I was just like, wow, that's pretty intense for you to have this whole theory. It didn't help that he was raised by an assassin as well.
Well, who else is going to raise you if you're going to fight in a holy war? An assassin. Let me deal with the fact that my father's done this, and this. But it's okay. The assassin will help me get through this. And it's like, okay, cool.
That guy is one of my favorite anime characters of all time now, by the way.
Who's that? Kirigutsu.
Yeah. He is so intense, and you just like characters who are consistent. He's so consistent. There's even a point where you're thinking, there's a point where some people think you can waver. You can waver because, your happiness is like, nah, my happiness is not even going to get in the way of my beliefs, of my principles. And what he does, and that is one thing I'm not going to spoil, what he does at the end of Fate Zero.
Oh, no, yeah, that was... I mean, obviously, like in Fate Stay Night, they hint that Kirigutsu did something to Saber to betray her and whatnot. But then when you find out what he did, you kind of go, I like what this man did. I'm sorry, Saber. As much as, like, you wanted to do your own dreams, whatever, what he did was actually pretty cool. Was pretty messed up at the same time. Pretty damn cool.
He had really good intentions.
Oh, yeah, he did.
He really did. And, I really do. That's what I said. I really rate him as being one of the most consistent characters I've seen in anime, because usually when you get to that point, and I'm talking, well, we're going spoiler territory, he gets the grill, he gets to make his wish, and he can have everything he wants, but he realizes that the war is going to continue.
Yeah.
So he has to destroy his own dream before he can destroy the drill. And destroying his dream, what he does is just to see that visually, that's something you see in the worst of hentais.
Yeah.
What is probably the most singlest fucked up thing in the whole franchise for me, to be honest with you, what he did there. But we're kind of harping on different points about talking about the franchise in entirety. And for me, the Fate Stay Night, Fate Zero, the characters they've picked for the legendary heroes, for the seven chosen avatars. Yeah. They just work on those characters so well. They're so well written. Ryder.
It's like a Ryder being a Skinder, or for those who don't know, it's Alexander the Great. It was like, his appearance made me laugh. Just because I thought to myself, that dude is huge. And in progression of the series, his master is the guy named Wave of Velvet, and he's like the most weediest person you'd ever imagine partaking in this, but he somehow got in, and it was like, okay, he's made it in, and somehow he's got Alexander the Great as his avatar, as his chosen hero. And I was just laughing. He was like, you expect him to have this big boisterous thing as a ruler, but yet he was more jovial and jokey than anything else. But then afterwards, it was like, when there's a scene in obviously Fate Zero much later on when all the heroes have established who they are, where Alexander the Great, Saber, and Gilgamesh sit down to have a conversation, and because all three of them are technically kings, they sit down to have a king's drink, so to speak, and they sit down with a big bottle of sake and they discuss plans. And it's at that point when you see Ryder take a more serious note to the thing. It's like, and Gilgamesh sits there and he's kind of like, well, to be fair, I'm the king of heroes. I'm the first king that this world has ever seen. And truth be told, you're both idiots in my eyes. It's like, so him sitting there, it's just like, he watches Ryder or Alexander belittle Saber's dreams, but at the same time, he has nothing to worry about. So in his eyes, he's seen it as he's already won. So,
but the dialogue is so tight in this show. Everything they're talking about is so wise. You know what I mean? It's real talk. They're talking like real kings, and they have a serious conversation. And even though Gilgamesh is an arsehole, he sits there, he's quiet, and he even understands that what Ryder's saying is the truth, and he even respects Ryder.
Yeah, I know.
He does respect him.
Yeah, because obviously, like, whereas Saber, even though she was the king of knights, she was a little naive compared to the other two.
She gets the worst talking to ever.
Oh yeah, she does. It's like she literally gets schooled like anyone else, and like no one else you'd ever see. I mean, in fact, she's a king as well, but to them, she's a little girl who's wearing a crown.
Do you know, there was a line, I think Gilgamesh said some really disgusting things to her. He said something like, you're just like the sweetest virgin, the sweetest, naivest little virgin. And he said something like, I should just sleep with you.
Pretty much, yeah. That's pretty much what he wanted to do.
And that will just open your eyes, because you are just pathetic. I mean, they both called her pathetic and naive, and, and that even ran through to Fate Stay Night, where even characters in Fate Stay Night were telling Saber that she's very naive and her thoughts, and, when you find out about her past, but...
Yeah, I mean, and also when you find out what her initial dream was, like what she wanted to do once she got to the Grail, like what her dream was, you're like, there's no way, that's a really naive and unrealistic dream of what she wanted to do. But, like, what they did was right. I mean, they pretty much... not scolded her, but they did put her in a place, and she just refusingly wanted to see that it was going to happen.
My only criticism with Fate Zero, I love Fate Zero, I really do. some series in Japan, when they're released as like a first season 12 episodes, second season 12 episodes, and then later they just called it one season. It does happen. It happened with Gantz as well. The first season of Fate Zero, there was a lot of dialogue, which I did enjoy. When the action was there, it was good, well, excellent. We're talking about it was just excellent.
It was awesome. I mean, the first fight scene from the first half of Fate Zero, season 1, was when they're at the docks and you've got Lancer and Saber about to have their first battle, and all the sort of like all the other magicians are watching the fight and everything. But the animation and the style of fighting that was put into that fight was awesome. It was one of the best I'd seen in such a long time in terms of production value, and I was just enthralled by it. So I mean, after it came out, I went back to watch it a couple of times because I loved watching that fight scene. And then, like the next episode after that, it introduced more of the servants making their appearance, like the first appearance of Berserker in that, the Black Knight popping up, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, this guy is insane. Like he had no weapon per se, so you couldn't tell who he was. But every time he picked up a weapon, he increased the durability of it ×2, and the strength of it was ×3 or something. So, I mean, he himself was insanely powerful, but his rage was like messed up. Like, obviously, you might remember this, the scene where Gilgamesh is standing on top of the lamppost, and like Berserker is just looking up at him, really pissed off. And Gilgamesh, being as arrogant as it is, he goes, "Dog, what are you looking at? Be careful where you gaze your eyes upon a king." And he throws a weapon at him, and then Berserker catches the sword. So Gilgamesh is pissed off, so he looks and goes, "What the heck?" Throws another one at him, and he smashes it at the same time with the weapon he just caught, causing Gilgamesh to have to jump down from the lamppost, because the power of the slice cut Gilgamesh's lamppost in half, forced him to go down to the ground, and he was like, "You dog, you've made me touch the ground to become equal level with you." And it's like, that was sick. But the best bit was when you saw it in slow motion of what Berserker did, you went, "Oh my god, that was insane."
It was pretty cool, man.
It was, and then like obviously Ryder makes his appearance with his big ass chariot, and just like he comes in and goes, "Guys, I've got a proposition for you. Why don't you work for me?" And you're like, "Wow, the cheek of this dude."
Do you know that's what I was going to get to? My criticism again. People, I can't believe this guy's always being negative, but that first 12 episodes, it was a lot of build up. There was a couple of fights, something like that, and the dialogue was great, and I wasn't bored. I really wasn't. But they were just always talking about they're going to have the battles, and they had few battles, and then one of the subplot for the first 12 episodes turned with one of the, is it Meisters?
The mages.
One of the mages and the servant or whatever went, the killer, the serial killer.
Oh yeah. So that's who was it? It was Caster. It was Caster, and I think his name was Ryusuke. Yeah, the guy who became the serial killer. Yeah.
They kind of centralized them two as the villains, and they tried to twist everything towards them. And then there was a climax with him that for me didn't make sense, because it was like 3 of them against 1 of him.
It's just because he was doing stuff on the sly. It's like he wasn't. They made it look like that. Ryunosuke, his master, and Caster, they weren't. Well, he was Crowley, wasn't he?
No, my problem was, even at the pinnacle, I think, of episode 12, where the first season ended.
Yeah,
he created some mad spell that 3 of them.
A beast, yeah, and the 3 of them had to come down and take him out. Yeah,
and that didn't make sense. That really, that 3 of you, because I didn't think he would be that powerful, but they made it out like Saber had to, unleash her ultimate weapon to stop him. Like, really? To that extent?
Well, to be fair, like they did say that the like each class has their own of things that make them stronger than the others. So obviously, someone like Iskender or Alexander couldn't use his final to take this thing out just because it wouldn't make any sense. And like Caster he'd pretty much gone around and killed a ton of people using their like life force or whatever, their mana, to pretty much unleash the spell. And because he had his own like magical book with him, it's to say that his powers, he's a magician working in a realm of magic, having been summoned from the dead. So it's like he has got an untapped power source at his disposal. And considering what he did, everything leading up to episode 12 at the end of season 1 of Fate Zero,
that was awesome.
He did pretty much gather a huge amount of magical power.
And that's the thing. The first season, I felt like I was getting to see each of them show their abilities without fighting each other.
Yeah.
Because the only one that really fought each other was Saber and Lancer. Yeah. And then everyone else was just planning and scheming until the last half, where things went very fast.
Yeah, that's probably my one downside to Fate Zero is towards the end, like when season 2 kicked off for Fate Zero, the later half of that felt like you just rushed into nowhere. It was kind of like, boom, we need to get this done in 6 episodes. And I was kind of like, I'm confused. It feels like you've left out a massive chunk of stuff.
Yeah, because they built up things so well, and you thought, oh, this might be a round. We might get to see more comps, more battles, and then all of a sudden, dead,
Yeah,
dead.
exactly.
And then you're like, okay. And then to make matters worse for me, ended on it continues in Fate saying that, oh, really? Fuck.
It ends in a very unended way. So it's kind of like, Fate Zero's finished, but we leave you open for Fate Stay Night if you wish to go see how it continues. And you're kind of going, oh, I wanted to see how it ended in Fate Zero. But it's like, no, because we need to bring Fate Stay Night into it, and here we go.
Now, funny enough, what I want to do now, because we're going on, we did kind of converse about this a bit more than we did about Fate Fate Stay Night. But I want to wrap this up because this, like I said, this isn't a conventional review. These are two guys just talking about the franchise, just generally. And I just want to wrap up my thoughts, and I'll let you wrap your thoughts up on this as well. Fate Zero is an awesome show that complements the whole franchise.
Yeah.
It just takes everything you said that you foresaw in the Fate Stay Night was shown to me in Fate Zero.
Yeah.
You know, you had the optimism because you were interested in those ideals from Fate Stay Night, but I wasn't. I just wasn't. But when I saw Fate Zero, I'm like, shit. You know, someone took the potential this franchise had and made it into something great. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. It did well in using Fate Zero to sort of like round up the Fate series in this particular way. So, I mean, if it had been the other way around, like they'd actually, and they got more of a chance. They did it how it's supposed to be. Like Fate Zero was supposed to start the story, and they were like, boom, here's Fate Zero. There you go, start it all off. And then if they did Fate Stay Night, but they tweaked it so it matched those of what happened in Fate Zero, it might have completely changed the franchise around even more. Like in a more positive light, I reckon it would have done it.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Habib, because I felt like Unlimited Blade Works did that to an extent. You see, that's what I'm going to get into, but I just want you to finish what you think about Fate Zero before we get to that.
Like with Fate Zero, I loved that series. I thought it was very good. But in terms of prequels, you won't find another series that can come close to doing what it did. I mean, it took a story that already existed and then showed you what it was meant to actually be. And you kind of went, holy crap, this is just ridiculous how this has just gone from... And this thing is, though, it took a story that where Fate Stay Night took the story and kind of had to sort of like bring it down a couple of notches to make sure it was okay for everyone to watch. Fate Zero went, okay, we're just going to do it how it was meant to be. If you don't like it, screw it, that's your own loss. But you're missing out on something great. And it took such dark undertones on certain things of what they did. And, I mean, even the animation production just was on another level for me in terms of a show that was getting broadcasted on like a nighttime viewing. So like normally that type of animation you'd leave it for like a Blu-ray release or a DVD release, but they were like, no, we'll throw the money out and throw it at the TV release. And like the story was well thought out, the dialogue was done well, the fight scenes when they did it was fantastic. You felt pain for each one of the characters that had to go through it. Each one of the heroic characters that were chosen for the war, they each had an even more disastrous end or life that they'd been met with, and you just felt for each and every one of them. I mean, granted, Gilgamesh was still a dick in both seasons, but, you know, it's Gilgamesh. You need a bad guy to do this.
And he was great.
And the thing is, though, it's not just... The thing is, we forgot to mention that it's not just Gilgamesh that was, like, considered the main bad guy in it, or being, like, the biggest jerk in it. It was like, there was another guy in it who's... What's his name? Yeah,
Gilgamesh's second master?
Yeah, exactly. Gilgamesh's second master. He was like Kyrie Kotime. Like he himself was an unofficial. Well, he became the seventh master in the Fate Zero storyline, and then in Fate Stay Night, he became the father that oversaw it. But he was also still the master, but never technically partook the fights until the very end. So
he is the antagonist.
He is, and that's the thing. Even in Fate Zero, he was as a human, he was insanely powerful. I mean, we all talk about how Shiro had that stupidity, that blind stupidity of being the champion of justice and following through with it. Okay, in retrospect, then Kotomine was the human equivalent to it, because everything he believed in was like, right, I'm just going to power into physical strength. You're like, this guy is insanely strong. I mean, insanely strong, and he was human as well. You're just going, I don't get how you do it. I mean, he saw Kirigitsu as his other half. Like they were supposedly like one half of the same soul. They both had been through the same thing. They both had like the same vision of what things were going to go down, and it was like
they had the awesomest fight in the last episode.
Oh, they did.
The hand-to-hand combat fight they had was everything you would hope for.
That's the thing. It was good. That's the thing, though. But the one thing that's when I first saw how powerful he was, and it made me go, "This is just ridiculous. This man is fighting against people using magic barehanded and winning." Was when remember when they were when Kenneth came to kill Kirigitsu in the mansion.
Yeah, of course I remember that. Oh my god!
And like obviously, Iris Phil and Maya were escaping from the castle, and they
in the forest.
Yeah, they came into the forest, and they ran across Kotomine, and it was like, oh crap, he's here, and like they were using magic to stop and everything. He just like Maya herself is like Kirigutsu's assistant. She's not like in any form of the slightest like weak in any term, but she just ended up facing as an opponent who was, if not on the same level as her boss / lover. Probably slightly stronger in some places, but yeah, like when he broke his hands free of the magic restriction that Iris Phil put onto him, I thought I thought he was actually using magic to break the spell, but apparently he was just using his own force, his own strength to break the tree with his own hands.
People need to see it, and he killed both of them.
Yeah, well, he didn't kill both of them. He killed one of them.
Well, they should have. They nearly both died anyway.
Yeah, they nearly both died. But it was just things like, and the funny thing is, in obviously in Fate Zero, you remember that he was obviously an apprentice to what's his name? Yeah, Rin's father. Yeah, he was apprentice to him, and then after he became vice versa, she became his apprentice in Fate Stay Night. But no, that's the thing. Like, okay, rounding up Fate Zero, my thoughts on it. It is, like I said, one of the best prequel series in a franchise you will ever see, and probably one of the best I've ever seen. I spent the better part of a week since we last spoke regarding trying to think of prequel shows that could come close to this, and I can't think of one.
No, same here. Which is why we're going to address a question that someone asked us about that as well. But yeah, I that's my fascination with this franchise. Like, how can you make something backwards? How can you make something? There's so many times. How many times you watch the anime and said to yourself, that had so much potential?
Oh, many times. Many times I've watched an anime and said that.
You know, this is the one where they're like, you know what? We know it has potential, and we're going to, go back and show you how much potential it actually had. And that left everyone thinking, oh, that was great. And then, guess what? Fate Stay Night is our sequel. And you're like, really? That's a sequel to this?
Then I suppose, I mean, even though Fate Stay Night's had its shortcomings, I suppose Unlimited Blade Works kind of filled in the gaps for that, if you want to go that way with it.
I do. You told me on the last podcast we did together, you mentioned that there was a Fate Stay Night movie. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I didn't even look into it. So, what is Unlimited Blade Works?
Unlimited Blade Works is, in a sense, another version retelling the Fate Stay Night storyline. However, it's taken from the perspective of Archer. Okay, so where Fate Stay Night ran and did its own thing, Unlimited Blade Works is sort of like it runs parallel, and then at a certain point it diverges off and goes, right, this is how we were supposed to do Fate Stay Night. This is how it was actually meant to go down.
Yeah, I would think so.
So they've done it. So they've done it as a movie. In a sense, it's about just shy of a 2-hour-long animated movie. And going, this is how Fate Stay Night was supposed to go down, and it's taken from the perspective of the fan favorite Archer.
All right. Well, first of all, I just want to let the people know that if you haven't seen Unlimited Blade Works, you need to see it.
Yeah, you do.
When you finish watching Fate Zero and you have that emptiness of knowing that, Fate Stay, even though I'm not trying to hate on Fate Stay Night is the follow-up. Watch Unlimited Blade Works. I think that gave me a much better feeling, than Fate Stay Night did overall. Like, this is the tone way matches Fate Zero. We'll get into why I mentioned that, but it was animated 4 years after Fate Stay Night.
Yeah.
And you could just tell by that. And when you see the animation, it looks very, very similar to Fate Zero.
Yeah, you got to remember, they also had a bigger budget at the time. Because obviously, Fate Stay Night, when TV shows are getting made, their budget's really small. So they can't go out and go, boom, there you go, there's a mad budget to do it like this. So obviously, as time's gone along, obviously popularity of shows has boosted it up. Game sales, the franchise itself has gotten even better. And they've gone, right, make Unlimited Blade Works the movie. Here's some more money. Go nuts and make it. And they're like, done. Cinema release, here we go.
And when you started talking about it on the last podcast, I was like, you told me it was alternate parallel. I just thought to myself, why would you even do that? But after watching it, I'm sorry, Habib, I've got to say, I know Blade Works was made before Fate Zero, wasn't it?
In terms of production or story?
In terms of production.
Yeah, it was made before Zero.
So in my mind, it's like they were already writing Fate Zero, getting ready to get that out there, and thought, you know what? Let's just make a better version of Fate Stay Night before we put out Zero, because I know it's just an assumption, but I just, after watching, I'm like, how can you compare this to Fate Stay Night? This is how it should have been. This is how it should have been, man. This movie is really, really, really good.
Yeah, that was the point though. So because obviously Fate Stay Night, like I said before, was restricted to a certain amount of things that they couldn't go how the game was supposed to tell it how it was supposed to be. But the Unlimited Blade Works movie kind of takes it out one step or two steps above and goes, right, we can kind of show you more of what the original Fate Stay Night was supposed to be like. Obviously still admitting certain things, but they've gone, boom, here's Unlimited Blade Works. This is kind of what we wanted Fate Stay Night, the series, to be, where we've condensed it into a just shy of 2-hour movie.
Now, people, I'm going to warn you. We're going to go into complete spoiler territory now. Again, you should have already known not to listen, but watch Unlimited Blade Works, because the first thing I'm going to bring up maybe is going to piss some people off, but the reason why I think Unlimited Blade Works a little bit better for me, and the reason why I said people are going to be pissed off, going to be a little bit sexist. Having Saber as a protagonist in the first series felt weird.
Boo! You sexist.
Yeah, I know, because she's King Arthur. I'm like, that's a well-known male character, and you've made her female, and she's the one with all the power, and the boy is trying, the thing with that guy, Shiro, he's always trying to be the protagonist. He's always, let me fight Saber, I will protect you, but you've got no power, you're gonna die, I don't care. And then everyone's like, what is wrong with this guy? In Unlimited Blade Works, it's like they've given you the sexist people what they want. They give Shiro the power he needs. They give Shiro, it's not, look, I don't like him, his personality, he's a fool, but I can understand his logic from how he was raised and what he's been through, or that. The storyline in Unlimited Blade Works is tighter than Fate Stay Night, and it just feels more natural. Yeah. Especially with someone that, if the main character's always wanted to step in and be the hero, but he never gets a chance to be, like in Fate Stay Night, the best they do is they kind of make him and Saber together give the final attack. But Unlimited Blade Works, it's all Shiro, man. It's all about him. And Habib, I'm gonna let you give the reveal about Archer, because why is this about Archer?
Okay, yeah, it's the thing is, I actually didn't clock onto this until my brother. I think it was my brother told me. It was like, so in Fate Stay Night, there is episode 15 where Archer goes to rescue Shiro, who's been captured by Iliasville. She is also another master, and she controls the Berserker avatar, who I've said earlier is Hercules, who's her heroic spirit. So in this, they portray that Hercules or Berserker has 12 lives, and Archer's there, and he's rescuing Shiro with Rin, and Saber's there, but Saber can't fight because in the previous battle she's been drained of her mana, so she's only sort of fighting at half capacity, so she can't do much. Now Archer's like, I'll take care of this guy. So he fights Hercules, and they're going at this battle. And in the midst of the battle, he starts to remember who he was, because prior to that, he doesn't have a clue who he is. It's like, just because Rin, when she summoned him, sort of like messed up on the spell, and he forgot who he was. He didn't even know his true identity. So in the fight between Berserker, this fight, even in Fate Stay Night, is still a pretty epic fight, because he's going toe to toe with Hercules and actually doing some damage. So he starts like pulling off these like pretty sweet like attacks, and he's doing all right for himself. And then it gets to the point where he's like, okay, crap, this guy is really giving me a fucking run for my money, and I've got to make sure that Rin escapes and the other two escape as well, so I'm going to have to go all out. So he then activates his own special move, which is called Unlimited Blade Works. And how that move works is that he creates a gigantic reality bubble, and in that reality bubble he brings his opponents in, and he literally has them standing in a field of swords, unlimited swords. And and because of Archer's ability, he can pretty much manifest a blade in his mind to create it to reality, and the sword's only as strong as he imagines it as his creation. So it's as strong as his willpower and his imagination combined. So
Sounds like some Green Lantern shit.
yeah, exactly. In a sense, he's like a Green Lantern without the ring. So but he can just do it naturally. So he ends up in this reality bubble, taking out Berserker's life 5 times. He kills Berserker 5 times with one arm, because his left arm got busted in the fight prior to him activating his super move, and he kills Berserker 5 times. And then you discover after he's been defeated by Berserker, he disappears into ethereal light, and where he died, on the floor where he died, there was a red necklace with this giant red jewel, where in the beginning of Fate's Day Night, Shiro came across a fight between Archer and Lancer, and because it was supposed to be that no one was supposed to ever see these fights, and whoever did was supposed to be killed, Shiro was like, crap, I have to make a run for it. Lancer eventually finds him and stabs him in the heart. So so Shiro's like, crap, he's collateral damage. Rin, being the master of Lancer, comes across this and goes, oh my god, I've got an instant involved. And she knew who it was, and she goes, oh my god, it's Shiro from my school. Oh crap, this is really bad, I have to do something to save him. So she pulls out the same necklace that you see from the episode and gives it to Shiro, bringing him back to life. And then it's like, oh my god, you put 2 and 2 together. Shiro is Archer in the future.
Let me just say this. The anime, Fate didn't do a good job. Fate Stay Night didn't to illustrate that clearly to the audience at the time, did they? In Fate Stay Night.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. It's like at the episode 15, if you had been following it like proper, like picking out every detail, notes and everything, you would have gone, oh my god, they're one and the same. But later on, as Fate Stay Night progresses, you then begin to see that link to it. But like, obviously, because Shiro then starts to manifest Archer's 2 signature blades, Byakuya and I forgot what the other sword is called. Like his black and white sword that he has. He begins to start manifesting himself, and people are like, how's he doing it? And then he brings it out more and more and more. So he too starts using the same magic that Archer uses, and then it clicks that he goes, Shiro and Archer are one and the same.
Okay, well, that's a whole fanboy thing. But luckily, there's a movie that clearly dedicates a whole 2 hours to explaining this story to you, and that is Unlimited Blade Works.
Mm-hmm. That's true, yeah. So Unlimited Blade Works is sort of the same thing. It's the same principle of all of the Fate series in general. It just takes Fate Stay Night, but gives it sort of like, it cuts out the useless bits and refines it more. So you're literally just going pure out with story. Like they're getting to the core of everything. Yeah. So this one kicks off with Archer being summoned by Rin, as he does in Fate Stay Night, but for some reason he actually knows who he is. So, and he's like, okay, I've been summoned. Oh, Shiro's here. I don't like this dude. And because he knows who he is, he's like, I don't like you because I know what you're going to become. He sees Saber, and he's like, I'm going to have to stop her because she honestly doesn't get that what she wants to do ain't never going to happen.
Yeah.
Like the story follows this thing, and then it does the usual thing. Like you take Fate Stay Night, the blueprints, Fate Unlimited Blade Works is the same thing, except for the fight scenes are more intense. Archer's insanely overpowered in this. There's a fight at the beginning of Unlimited Blade Works, so you probably remember, where Saber's fighting Berserker. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
like,
and doesn't he save her?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, he's like, okay, I'll save Rin, and he disappears, and you're like, where was Archer disappeared to? And because servants and their masters have a sort of like a telepathic bond between them, they can communicate with each other. So Archer's standing, I'm pretty sure, on a bridge about 13 miles away, 15 miles away from the fight scene. He's just like, right, bow and arrow, powering up this intense bow, this intense arrow.
Yes, how could I forget that bit? Yeah,
and he's just glowing like crazy, and he's just like, I need you to move slightly to the left so I can shoot Berserker. And he does. He just fires it from the thing, and Berserker takes a hit like no other, and he's just out. He's not out for the count, but he is taking some damage.
He stops.
Yeah, he stops.
And I remember, because he's so berserk, but then he's like a wounded dog.
Yeah.
And it just kind of walks off.
Exactly. He's like, crap, I've just been hit with a really messed up attack. And you're like, oh my god, Archer did the exact same attack in Fate Stay Night in the initial battle with Berserker. And Berserker took it in the chest and kind of like, okay, I've been slightly stunned. In this, he's kind of like, oh my god, I'm going to just back off for a bit. This is ridiculous how much power that dude threw into it.
Well, not to go too much into this because there's no need, because it's a very short movie. Yeah. The main thing with this is it seems to be a story about Shiro.
Yeah.
And about what he becomes. It's so funny to find out, this hero to going to be a hero. Guess what? That's your future. Yeah. And your future is shit. Yeah. And now you're facing your future self, who's telling you, and it's like, wow, this shit comes full circle. Mm-hmm. Because in the original Fate Stay Night series, he his personality is weird, and it ends in just some kind of melancholy, lost love kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever. But now it's like, it's not about that. It's about him, the hero, him finding out what he really becomes. He becomes what he wanted to be all along.
Yeah, he did.
He's trying to fight his own destiny, and he finally. And I'm not saying that, oh, I'm so sexist, this is what I wanted, but he has the most awesome 1-to-1 against that fucking arsehole Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
And that fight, oh, fucking awesome, man.
That was great. I mean, the one down thing I have for it is like when Archer, like, or when Shiro does his unlimited blade words, he says the lines that lead up to it in English. So when the voice actor for Archer says it in English, you're kind of like, okay, it works all right. But then because the guy who did Emi Shiro's voice is the same actor who does Sasuke from Naruto, his English isn't that great. So I'm watching it going, oh god, it sounds weird. It doesn't even sound like you're saying the words properly.
Why did you have to bring that to light? You know what the majority of people hate Sasuke? You know how much people hate Sasuke?
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. I can't stand the dude either. He's like the champion for emos, and I don't understand why he exists. But I look at it going, whatever. I mean, the guy did something. He's done the voice of Shiro, and he's done all right on it. But like for me, like when he becomes Archer, it's a whole other thing. It's miles better. That fight scene at the end of Unlimited Blade Works, where it's like Shiro versus Gilgamesh, and he then starts pulling out all the moves that Archer can do. You're there going, oh, there we go. He's coming into his own now. This is really awesome.
Finally, the guy, the pussy who, well, he wasn't a pussy. He's just an idiot who never had the power. Finally steps up to someone that no one could beat, and finally puts this arrogant asshole in his place.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the funny thing, and lastly, because I'm going to wrap this up on this because we've got to talk about, but the funny thing about this is the way it actually ends. It's kind of ridiculous but acceptable.
Yeah.
Because basically, I think Shiro doesn't manage to beat Gilgamesh. I mean, he nearly does, but he doesn't. And boy, out of nowhere, boy.
Yeah, Archer does. But we should make it clear by this point. By that point, Archer has technically been defeated in the Unlimited Blade Works. He's been defeated, and then towards the end, where it's sort of like Rin and Saber, who have now become master and servant, go off to stop the Grail. Shiro's now left to fight off against Gilgamesh, and on his own, yeah. So he's finally pulled out the powers that he ends up eventually having when he becomes Archer come to light, and he ends up decking Gilgamesh, and you think he's won it, but it's kind of like, okay, he's pretty much spent just because he's used up all his power for the first time. He's not really learned to ration it properly, and out of nowhere, it's like you hear Archer's voice, and not only has he helped Rin and Saber at some point in their side mission, he's also helped Shiro himself at the same point. He kind of like, and both times he's done it in epic fashion. You're like, that's awesome.
Yeah, off screen, just a knife, just a most epic sword, and he gets it in the head, and it is like, that's some Fate Zero violence. That is just,
exactly.
Wow.
I just thought, I went, oh, shame. It was like, oh well, he's dead.
Yeah, and you don't question it. I know it's kind of like, how the hell did that even happen? But it kind of makes sense. It's like, no, that makes sense, because I'm thinking of it this way. I don't even want to rationalize this, but the bottom line is, look how powerful that guy was.
Yeah.
I mean, if Shiro can harness a power he doesn't even have yet in future, then the guy can come back from the dead and give one last kill move.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing was like, there's I forgot which Fate storyline it is, but they actually explain Archer's role more prominently. It's like he becomes the champion in the future, and he ends up belonging to a thing called a Throne of Heroes, and there's sort of like a guild in the future where they are magicians and heroes who go out to make sure the world is, I think, it's like kept in balance and whatnot. But the thing is, though, in that, one thing I forgot to mention is when a hero is summoned to become a servant in the Holy Grail War, the only reason they're summoned is because they've come back because something bad has happened to them at the time of their death. They've lived, something has happened which caused them to regret what happened.
Good, yeah, thanks for pointing out.
In Archer's case, he was betrayed by the Throne of Heroes. So he was betrayed by not only the people he worked with, but his guildmates and everything else. So he was betrayed, and at the point of his death, he obviously was like, I regret becoming a hero. Is probably what led him to that. So he obviously comes back, and his whole purpose is to try and convince Shiro, his younger self, to not take this path, but it will only lead to betrayal and loss and hurt and everything between it. Now, in a
Just like Lancer.
it's in a sense like Lancer, yes. So and there's another part where apparently whenever the Holy Grail War takes place, Archer is summoned because he's not technically a hero. He's known as the anti-hero. So he's there to stop the others from completing the Grail, completing the war and whatnot.
Boy,
I mean, there's tons of history involving like the characters and whatnot, but that's something you're going to have to research. Everyone's going to have to research on their own because the history of Fate is a huge one.
I'm giving my rating right now. Unlimited Blade Works movies are first class. The only negative I have for it, to be honest with you, and it's a small one, I wish they went. When I was watching it, they glossed over some things in the series that you need to watch the series to understand, and that bothers me because I would have preferred it. I would have been like, you know what? I know you might not like what I'm about to say, but if they had done this as a proper alternate where they filled in all the gaps, which they didn't, I would have actually told some people to watch Unlimited Blade Works instead of the Fate Stay Night series altogether.
No, that's fair enough. You can tell them to do that. That's the thing. Like if they don't have time to sit down and watch a 24 episode, because to be fair, 24 episodes, there are going to be some episodes where you're just going to be like, I don't know why they're showing this. It does prolong it more than it needs to. Unlimited Blade Works
But you can't do that though, because they glossed over some major points even in the Unlimited Blade Works movie.
Yeah, true, they did. But I mean, to be fair, there are probably some like Unlimited Blade Works would give you the gist of what you needed to know.
It will definitely. It gives you more than enough. Like if someone said to me, "Oh, I just finished watching Fate Zero, and I heard the Unlimited Blade Works movie just gives you the gist of it," I would say if you're really short on time, you can do that. But to be honest with you, I would say if you can watch Fate Stay Night, you might as well, because it isn't that bad. Like I said in the beginning, Fate Stay Night isn't that bad. But you know, I'm giving Unlimited Blade Works first class, and now that I've seen it, I actually like the way I saw this whole franchise. I like seeing Fate Stay Night first, Fate Zero, and then Unlimited Blade Works. The main reason is when you watch Fate Zero, the end, it just doesn't leave you fulfilled. And I think Unlimited Blade Works just really gives you a much more rounded. I think it's better. The only thing is, another thing about Unlimited Blade Works is Saber and Shiro don't have a proper farewell, which is another kind of thing that you get in Fate Stay Night. You get a proper, emotional, romantic farewell, but they're in two different places because Shiro's fighting Gilgamesh and Saber is trying to stop the Grail from devouring the world or whatever the hell it was doing. So, but I didn't really care because to me, the love element is very, very small. It's just a small part in the show, and it's done okay. It doesn't encompass the whole anime. Like in Shana, the love between these two characters or three characters, that's what this seems to be mostly about. But whatever. But in my mind, I just want to sum up my whole thoughts on this franchise. I've said this about 3 times since we've been talking about this. You had Fate Stay Night, something I thought was mediocre. They went back. Unlike you, I just took it for another anime that had some interesting plots. But as so many anime out there, had potential, didn't think anything else of it. Obviously, the creators thought, nope, it has potential, and we're going to show you what potential it has. Went back, made Fate Zero. Like, fuck, that was great. Unlimited Blade Works, shit, that's the ending I always wanted for Fate Stay Night.
Yeah.
Satisfied. So, if I had to give the whole franchise a grading, now everything's out, and who knows if they're going to make more. I've heard there's some little comedy side story thing.
You're talking about Carnival Phantasm. That's actually quite funny.
Okay. Oh, I know that's not really related. I guess that's optional, but I would give the whole franchise everything, and there's 2 negative things I want to bring up just before we end anyway. I would give the whole franchise a solid B, to be honest with you. The whole thing is a very high, solid B, but it has a lot of negatives and to be honest with you, the way it's done is kind of messy for me. This whole franchise, you can't watch one piece. You need to watch all the pieces. You can't just watch Fate Zero. You can't just watch Fate Stay Night. You can't just watch Unlimited Blade Works. You have to kind of put them together, and some people don't mind. And I just think it's a franchise you have to go all in on. You can't just take it for bits and pieces. You can, but I just don't think you will
enjoy as much or get the full fulfillment out of it. No, it's understandable on that. I mean, if like I'd say I'd probably agree with you on what you rated it as well. Like, it is a solid B. I mean, there are probably other series out there that will probably be better in the way they've done the storytelling. But to be fair, Fate Zero is probably not. I won't say it's one saving grace, but it's been major saving grace of the series.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, I have to. The majority of people have two major gripes about the franchise, which me and you've spoken about on the last podcast in brief. Which the first one is the Grail itself. To be honest with you, it is just a plot device. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a really bad one because everything else in the storyline is great except for the Grail itself. It doesn't seem that great. And in Fate Stay Night, in Fate Zero, and in Blade Works, it is very undefined and random and just not really done well. And to be honest with you, if they took the Grail out of it and just made it even a competition of who's the strongest, it would have been better. And they could have even made another series about it later if they wanted to. But the Grail itself, you already spoke about it, if you remember, on the last podcast as well. That everyone says the Grail fighting over a cup. Rubicon fans said this as well, fighting over a cup. I mean, every anime has a stupid goal.
Yeah.
Let's not even say One Piece. Don't even know what the hell it is.
Exactly. But the thing though, the fact they've kept it shrouded in mystery makes you wonder what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Grail, you can make a wish, but then you find out, oh no, the Grail was a destruction device, and it's like, what?
Yeah, it's in some places technically not even a cup. You're like, it's not a cup.
It's a person.
Yeah,
but then, when you think about that, but the second gripe that a lot of people have as well is something that you see a lot in anime, which you read. Another thing you got to look past is mana. They said that the avatars need the mana to survive, but then they ignore it. For the majority of all series, and not just one, all of them. Yeah. They need to kill humans to retrieve their mana, but through the majority, like Saber in Fate Stay Night, it's like there's a point where she's literally about to lose all her power, but then they come up. Oh, there's another way to give her a mana. You can suck energy. It's like, huh? But I thought he said she had to kill. No, she doesn't have to kill Reed. So what was the point of making it such a big thing?
Yeah, the mana thing was there was two types to do it. There was one where her master herself provides mana for her. So if a fully fledged magician in that verse was up and everything, he would be able to provide mana for his servant. So Saber would just get mana from him. Another which they showed was that they kill people and steal their mana. There was a third way as well. The third way was sex. In essentially is what it was. That's the reason why Fate Stay Night missed that so much, because in the scene where Saber, Shiro, and Rin were escaping from Ilya's castle from Berserk, there was a bit where they end up hiding in that like sort of rundown house.
Yeah,
There's a bit where obviously they showed that bit where he gave her one of his lines to get her magic to rebuild her mana. In that scene in the game, it's done the same way, but it's done through a physical contact, and they said the only way to get physical contact of that nature was sex.
Well, she took off her clothes. Even in Fate Stay Night, she took off her clothes and she kissed him.
Yeah, but that's just a small thing. They're like, oh, you have to hold hands or be close to do it. They want to know. Full-on contact was pretty much what they were saying. So it was like, sex was the way to get it. And I was like, that's why Fate Stay Night. If they'd done it exactly how the H game had gone it, you'd be like watching that thing as an 18. You'd have to wait. You'd have to wait for the Blu-ray releases or DVD releases to see how they actually properly did it.
Yeah, and funny enough, I would have said I think they would have gone that route in Fate Zero, but sex is something that turns it into something else completely. Even though they did hint at some sexual elements in the show, anyway, it just wasn't. It didn't make a difference. It's just why introduce something you're not going to use it. But then again, you can say the same thing with Dragon Ball Z and power levels. 1 minute it's there, next minute it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So everything's got its own thing, but to summarize, Habib, I am really fascinated with the series. I know some people probably even get this far on the podcast because they're thinking, you guys are just fanboys. I'm the critical one. I'm always critical of anime, and I was very critical of Fate Stay Night.
Yeah, I'm still a fanboy. I'm not going to deny that. So
that's why I had you on, because you knew the series. You were the sensei of this. You knew the series. You knew the characters. I had to have you on to speak about it. And I find when people find things interesting, I'm interested to find out why they like it.
No, that's fair enough. Exactly.
And for good reason, because the things that they alluded to in Fate Stay Night, they elaborated on in Fate Zero, and I can understand why anyone would like the series. I can't understand why they would like a series just of Fate Stay Night, because to me that's just It's just another anime that has potential like everything else. But now I see that potential. And funny enough, I kind of want to end this review on saying anime, they have so many ideas and so many anime series. There's so much creativity. Anime is one of the most creative mediums I've ever seen. That's why I'm a fan of it. That's why I love it. And you can make anything awesome.